Agenda 2063 is African Union's framework that aims to deliver on its goals for inclusive and sustainable development and is a concrete manifestation of the Pan-African drive for unity, self-determination, freedom, progress and collective prosperity pursued under Pan-Africanism and African Renaissance. The agenda aspires for an entrenched and flourishing culture of human rights, democracy, gender equality, inclusion and peace, prosperity, security, and safety for all citizens, and mechanisms to promote and defend the continent's collective security and interests. In driving home the agenda, silencing the guns remains strategic. The initiative is yet to achieve a conflict-free Africa, prevent genocide, make peace a reality for all, and rid the continent of wars, violent conflicts, human rights violations, and humanitarian disasters. African leaders hope to have the guns silenced by 2020 as one of the flagship projects of the wider developmental blueprint of Agenda 2063, which broad objective is to achieve peace to allow for development across Africa. On the program today, the focus is on Agenda 2063 of the African Union, but we will be focusing on silencing the guns. My guest is a scholar, professional teacher, political scientist, and former Vice Chancellor, University of Abuja, Professor Nuhu Yaqub. The program continues shortly.
It was in 2017 that the African Union launched an initiative called Silencing the Guns in Africa by 2020. Investigations showed that progress has been made in some countries and regions on the continent, but overall, it is still a daunting task with deadline approaching.
Sont les déficiences de l'État dans la gouvernance politique et économique.
Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, at the summit said the initiative is the core issue to achieve the Agenda 2063 of the AU and plays a crucial role in solving weapon abuse, which is the primary problem to solve in building a conflict-free Africa.
Et l'absence de dialogue.
For the AU chairperson, Cyril Ramaphosa, African leaders must work together to stop violence and terrorism, and that only peace can truly attract investment and development opportunities for the continent's free trade area.
We are mindful that its success cannot be separated from a stable and conducive business environment that is able to attract foreign direct investment.
The leaders say the deterioration of climatic conditions, frequent natural disasters, and the spread of COVID-19 have also further increased negative impacts on the security situation on the continent.
Agenda 2063 of the African Union is the focus of the program, but we'll be discussing silencing the guns. Once again, Professor Yaqub, good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, let's begin with just before going to the broader perspective. Can you give us in perspective how best we can achieve Agenda 2063 besides what we'll be looking at in perspective?
Well, the you talked about silencing the gun, which is a very strategic priority area, for Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063,
Sure.
Which, by interpretation, the AU wants to celebrate 100 years of the existence of AU or OAU slogan, AU, and that at that point in time, we will not be thinking in terms of the perennial crisis or crises that we'll be witnessing in Africa, interstate conflict, civil wars, diseases, unemployment, poverty, gender discrimination, climate change, and so on and so forth. These are some of the things that actually, if they are solved, we can actually predict or assume that silencing the gun as a strategic imperative for AU will be achieved.
Okay, now, Peace and stability will remain elusive in Africa if leaders do not address the connection between security and development.
Yeah.
This was focal at the just concluded 14th Extraordinary Summit of the African Union of Heads of States and Government. How do you summarize this?
Yeah, it goes without saying that if you are really thinking of development, it can only take place under a situation of peace or peaceful coexistence. You can't be having war and you'll be expecting, foreign investors to flock into your country to come and invest. They can't guarantee, their ability to operate in a peaceful environment that will ensure the recovery of their investment. And therefore, they will actually go to areas where there will be peace, and understanding among the citizens. So the peace and development are interconnected. Okay. You cannot have one and not have the and if the other is present, you can't have any.
Okay.
That's the point. If one is present, you cannot have any of the two social issues that we're looking at. So I think I would rather stress the point that development is crucial for African states.
Sure.
It's very important. At the same time, to ensure that these developments will be achieved, there must be peace. So it's like Siamese twins.
Okay.
You can't have one. You need to have the two. If you have one, then something that's actually missing. And this is what African leaders, given the time frame now, we're talking of silencing the guns and also achieving the objective of peaceful coexistence in most African states. You need to actually work very assiduously, to attain both at the same time.
Okay, still looking at silencing the guns.
Yeah.
How can this be achieved? Let's look at it from a holistic perspective, Africa. Now, in one of the peer mechanisms in AU, there was this emphasis. Then the chairman at the time, I don't know who the chairman currently, I have to confirm that, is that Africa should look inwards and think outside the box to achieve many things. Now we have cases of unemployment, poverty, as much as United Nations has just launched the Global Poverty Eradication Alliance, which we believe will take off very soon, or is already in place. How can they work harmoniously from this statement? We still have poverty, you have unemployment, you have illiteracy still all over the place. How can they work before going to individual perspectives?
Well, I am really, amazed that the average African, the average life of independence of African states is, between 50 and 60 years. Nigeria recently celebrated, has 60 years of independence. So if averagely you take the whole of Africa to have become independent 50 years ago, by now we should actually be thinking about, how do we launch somebody in the moon? Or at least how do we ensure that these African citizens in every country does not go to bed hungry, and that there will be no poverty, the excruciating poverty we are having or witnessing in Africa at the moment. But unfortunately, that is the reality. The reality which is, that there is, serious, poverty in Africa. Reality of the fact that there is, a disease, unemployment. You have civil wars, and a couple of other, associated, conflicts that, have actually brought Africa, have held Africa up in terms of development. Then you ask the question, why? Why is it that Africa is, confronted by all these, problems? It comes from, the simple point that there is
there's leadership deficit in Africa. And if you look at systems of government, dictatorship cannot ensure development in any country. But if you have a democratic setup, yes, people are given freedom to within the constitutional limits of expression of one's rights. You are given freedom to do what you do, but not violating the other person's rights. And therefore, you will live in a peaceful environment, carry out, your activities without any interference from the state. In fact, the kind of state that we need to have is what is normally discussed in political science literature as, parametric. In other words, the state is not the type that is squeezing, the people, but it's actually creating, parameters, for people to exercise their freedom, to innovate, to think, and to also, produce, and live in.
But is it possible as it is now?
Yeah.
To have an Africa without interference by what you call the superpowers?
No,
is it possible?
We may not. The world is such a. It has become really global, a global village. The world. That's what ICT has done. It has really become global village. There's no. We cannot actually, eliminate interference in the sense you are talking about from, the superpowers, because there are usually their own interests that is affected, and when it is affected, they will, want to interfere in what happens in Africa or in other regions of the world. But let's even put that aside. I think that what is required in Africa, even to meet our minimal requirement for development, set up democratic government or governance system. And people, know that these are the, the extent to which they can actually also carry on, their life, and they would know that, and that they will be successful in doing so. Then you also now think in terms of, what kind of development states should embark upon in Africa. You have a situation where education is not promoted or pursued vigorously. And let's even take the example of Nigeria. The university staff have been on strike for close to 9 months now, and nobody is talking about, resolving this. And we have students who have been denied, or students who have been denied, going to, study. I'm even worried that, parents have not even, shouted at government, what is it that is happening, that our kids are left at home? So I believe that, the building blocks that we need to look at, especially where at the point we are now, emphasis should be on, responsive, and democratic governance system. Let us have, government that is accountable to the people, that is transparent, and these things are done, in the full glare of everybody, as it happens in the Western world. In the Western world, you can expect, somebody to even sue, political leaders or their leaders if they are not doing, take the government to court if they are not, meeting their obligations. But here, even to say the government is not doing what it's supposed to do, they call it, it's called, we are actually trying to transmit fake news or fake information. That is one. There be democratic setup in this country, and critical, investments in education, in health, in infrastructure, and also in critical, economic position. For instance, we have the problem in this country. We have, since I can still recall that since 1974, when Yaqub was in power, that was when the idea of building iron and steel industry in this country was crystallized. Until today, we have not produced even, simple iron, steel in this country. And it is, the steel industry is very crucial for industrial development of any country.
Okay, let's still looking at the silencing the gun.
Yes.
I will ask, would that be achieved if the development of development agenda of AU is not in pari passu with the development agenda of maybe China, US, Germany, France, will it work?
Well, you see, as I said earlier, we live in an interdependent world, and so we should be very conscious of this. That certain regions or certain like AU, the whole of African continent, we have what economists will refer to as comparative advantage. We have resources, natural resources, we have mineral resources, and so on and so forth, and we can even also add agricultural resources, because if we put a house in order, Africa could feed the whole world. Okay, so I believe that if African development agenda is put in the perspective of how do we industrialize, how do we modernize our economy, and so on and so forth, there's no doubt that we will require certain inputs from countries like China that you mentioned, USA and European countries, because they will also be getting some of our products as inputs into their own production processes.
But looking at it from the angle of multilateralism and globalization,
that's right.
There is always this conscious effort to ensure that Africa doesn't go above board.
No. I think this amounts to conspiracy theory. The way I see it, I think the basic issue really is how do we get our house, put our house in order. This is what is the missing link, because China was disregarded in the late 50s by the Western world. It was considered to be a backward country. Similarly, India was considered to be backward. Who is talking about India? If you go to the Silicon Valley in the USA, a number of the engineers and computer scientists are from India. They have put their house in order. So nobody will look down on you if there is peace in your house. You are not going to ask a neighbor to come into your house to interfere in what is going on.
Because the worry basically is, for instance, the diamonds, the gold, limestones, crude oil, name it, all in Africa.
That's what I'm saying.
And say silencing the guns.
Yeah.
These interests will keep flooding Africa with the guns.
No.
For this economic interest.
I don't look at it
How will Africa collectively knock off this?
I will not look at it that way. That's why I keep on stressing the point about democratic governance, accountability, transparency.
But is democracy African?
It's not, no, of course it's not.
Like I'm saying, China is not democratic.
Well,
democracy, is it African?
It depends on if you look at it from the Western perspective of democracy. Yes, but some African societies were, you could say we had, before the coming of the white man, they were Republican, and they were also, setting up. Some of the societies were, certainly, as fellows, not, organized as such, as such. But at the same time, in a number of African countries, particularly if you take the Igbo, political background into perspective, the Igbos are considered to be Republican, and that a pattern of behavior is still very common among the Igbos in this country. They go everywhere they will be. They want to actually excel, and they give allowance to everybody. The neighbors and so on. The point therefore that I'm making is that yes, even if the Western type of democracy is not originally African, let me stress that there is nothing that is as important as allowing individuals to have freedom to contribute to the development of the society. This development of society is not done by a leader. I hope you know this. Yeah. It's not done by a leader. It is a collective, process. So everybody has a role to play. Everybody has something to contribute towards this development. And I'm saying that yes, we have diamond, we have gold, we have oil, we have agricultural resources. All these ones can actually take place in peaceful atmosphere when there is a democratic government that is responsive and responsible to the people. Okay. If you don't have it, then of course, we are going to have, the West, of course, some of them have interest in trying to ensure that, if it's possible, Africa should still remain. But for goodness sake, I said the average age of the typical African state now, the African countries of independence is 50 years. Are you telling me that somebody at 50 is not an adult enough to think about what they should be doing? Of course, for the life of a nation, you can be thinking in terms of, until after 200 years, but American democracy is over 200 years. Look at what what is happening in America now, with Trump trying to debase the democratic, system that, that brought him to power, which is trying to erode. So you always have, conspirators, if you can put it that way, within Africa that will want to work alongside with Western interests to, derail our development.
Okay.
But what is crucial for me,
Yes.
as a political scientist, is that let us put our house in order.
Okay. Now, coming back, we had MDGs.
Yeah.
It metamorphosed into SDGs.
Yeah.
Now, Agenda 2063 is almost like akin to SDGs.
That's right.
It has components of job creation, all that. Now, silencing the gun, coming back to, let's narrow down to West Africa and Nigeria. As much as the African countries, West African countries, Nigerian government, they are doing everything to ensure that all this is stemmed and achieved. You have talked about putting the house in order.
Yeah.
Besides working collectively as a continent, as individual countries, how best can we fight this, in conclusion?
I think, the bottom line is the individual state. If you take, for instance, the example of West Africa that you mentioned, individual states will have to study their own environment. Because nobody is coming to tell you this is what, is more important to your country than you, the owner of that country, or the citizen of that country. And for me, therefore, in West Africa, there is the process of, also integrating the economy of West African countries in ECO, those members of ECOWAS, countries who are members of ECOWAS. They will have to now, also go further to, maybe assist some countries, because some countries may not even have the resources, to, carry out extensive research and, understanding their environment. That being done, every country, we could actually look at, the comparative advantage of each member of ECOWAS and see what is it they can contribute to, because we are now trying to think of a pool of resources for the entire West African sub-region. What we will do, and what is important, is that every country should be able to understand what are the potentials they have. And then, the meeting of the, heads of state of ECOWAS sub-region will meet and now also say this is the area of competence or, resource endowment. How do we actually optimize what you have, so that it is not duplicated in a country that doesn't even, and maybe it will have to rely on resources from other countries before they can produce the particular commodity. So if we now specialize, we can now see how, specialization will enhance the productivity of each of the ECOWAS member states, each of them. And then in the end, we will, GDP of the countries will be boosted by such cooperative arrangement. And I think this is also what is required. When we are talking about silencing the guns, one of the key issues that has also been stressed by AU is that regional economic groupings are very vital for...
Like ECOWAS.
Like ECOWAS, yes. That they are very vital for attaining the objective of silencing the guns. So they have to, each regional, we have about 5 regional, communities in Africa. Each and every one of them will have to sit down and look at their comparative advantages and now, concentrate on ensuring that there is optimal development or utilization of the resources available to each region. And this is how, if we get this done, and I see this also based on the, the historical experience of the Western world. I mean, poverty has drastically been reduced. In fact, it's virtually, in some cases, you can even say Scandinavian countries, you can say that there is virtually no poverty. Poverty-stricken people in these countries. Therefore, the concern of what do I eat or where do I sleep, it's not a major concern. It's now to see how we go from this platform and produce or contribute to the conducive atmosphere in our country in order to ensure that peace and development can continue to be sustained. So this is what also is required. Let us see how we can optimize the use of the resources that is God given to us in order to actually turn turn around the development quagmire, as it were, that we have been experiencing since independence.
Thank you so much, Professor Nuhu Yaqub. It was nice having you on Diplomatic Ties.
Thank you very much.
Well, we looked at Agenda 2063, but the snippet of it, which is silencing the guns. Maybe some other time we'll look at job creation and other perspectives within Agenda 2063. That's not the program. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.